a brand new beta patch for Hearts of Iron 4. Question 1. How do I access this beta patch? You go into your Steam, you right click, and properties on Hearts of Iron 4. You go beta, and then you select the summer open beta. It will download it, and then you get to play it and take advantage of these brand new features and brand new changes. So over the summer, they're going to be releasing this beta patch for us to test out. It's going to be run over a long period, over 4 weeks. And this is to work in coincided with a new patch when the expansion is released as well. 3 major changes to Army, Air, and Navy. I'll admit the biggest changes are to Navy and Air, where Army's kind of slightly sidelined. However, the Army changes I think are the most OP. This beta patch will run from the 6th of July to the 3rd of August. So we're going to start off with Air. Excess thrust will now increase the agility instead of max speed. When it came down to the overall effectiveness of planes to survive dogfights, agility was king, then second, max speed, and the next one was defense. Max speed and defense kind of came as a close second. On release of the last expansion, we did find that agility got nerfed absolutely to the ground, and then it was like a boomerang. It came back in full force and hit us in the face, and now agility is king again. So agility is still really good. Now, there is a long, deep explanation on how agility works. I'll try and include a link in the description to go through it, but I'm not going to go through it in this video because, one, I don't fully grasp it, so I don't want to talk about something I don't fully get. And I also think it's so number heavy and spreadsheet heavy, I think it's actually kind of boring. So first things first, whenever now you have excess speed, it adds to agility, and we can show this by making ourselves a plane. So let's select this basic airframe. We pop on a machine gun, a cannon. No, machine gun. Yeah, double machine gun. Okay. The only factor that would affect agility was the chassis of the aircraft. So for instance, if I was to show an old chassis, the Interwar, the agility here is 39. Where a more modern aircraft, the version up from it, had more agility. And that was the only way you could get more agility. It was just the chassis of the aircraft. Now, if we've got excess speed and we gain more speed from having a more up-to-date engine. So the thrust of this is 11, the thrust of this is 16, and it gives you plus 20% to max speed. Oh, interesting. So they've changed the calculation slightly to take into account that change. So it looks to me like it gives a flat increase in speed, and plus any excess thrust will add extra to agility. And how do we test this? We basically add more weight to this aircraft. So we're at 45.5, and if we were to add on, let's say, we'll add on dive brakes. So dive brakes doesn't affect the agility other than it increases the weight by 1. And as you can see now, the agility's dropped down to 45. So let's just say we would add on a machine gun turret, which doesn't reduce the agility as a base amount. However, it increases the weight. So now the agility is 44.5. So these are very small changes. But be aware, if we were to whack on way more weight, let's say we're adding double cannons on and then double cannons on, the agility now drops down to 30. However, be aware this plane can now not fly because now it has too much weight to thrust. It can't even take off. There's just too much weight. So this is interesting because now are we going to see an optimization meta of adding the lightest potential machine guns and the emptiest aircraft with the most powerful engine to get the most out of the agility? I feel like we're still going to revert back to a min-maxing of trying to get the most defense and the most attack without losing agility. And by a base amount, the cannons do make you lose agility. But be aware, there's a 2-factor going on now. Adding cannons on because they're heavy loses agility. Probably because they stick out of the aircraft and they make the plane less aerodynamic. But plus you're losing agility because you're losing some of your thrust because of the weight of the cannons. Anyway, that's enough of that. Moving on. Airframes now have base... Okay, I'm going to say that's have. I'm literally confusing myself here. Airplanes now have a base max speed to better represent the airframe size speed changes. So if we were to hop in to here, so the plane now, the speed is determined by the chassis. Right, so the chassis now adds speed. Fair enough. Major air rebalance pass for frames and modules, as we've just seen. I suppose that relates to the two above. Increased tech date for survivability studies to 1939. Oh, this is such a good change. This is such a good change. This is such a good change. Are you ready, boys? Are you sat down? Boom! The new air screen. Oh, damn. This is such a good change. Just think about it for a second. Just think, and rub those brain cells together, make fire. Remember, survivability studies, you could research this in 1936. You've not even been in any air wars. So what are the studies? You know, it doesn't even make sense when you really think about it. At the end of the day, I think at the very, very start of the game, I think planes should be more naked. And then when the war begins, then you should start loading them up depending on your experience of the battlefield. So there's two things that I'll do differently now. Maybe I'll wait a little bit later to get my armor. Plus, I'll be thinking more about engines, because engines now give a base increase to speed, which affects dogfighting ability. It gives excess thrust, and excess thrust will result in more agility. Oh, here's a random thought. So what if I was to add on double engines? Will this give more agility? It will. Wow. I feel like you're incentivized now to go for the biggest engines. Once again, we need testing to know the actual results of this, but this is a massive change to dogfighting meta. So the big however is, sure, it might give more raw agility, which is more stats overall. However, there's like a cost-effective score that I showed in one of my previous videos. You can have a real expensive aircraft. However, the cheaper ones tend to trade a lot better, so therefore cost effectiveness is important. Improved aircraft turrets. So this is something that was completely ignored, and for the best reason it was ignored. So I guess they've improved the stats on those turrets. A slight decrease in agility hit for large bomb bays. Okay, so it looks like they've buffed agility, but they're trying to remind you that, remember, if you put in really large bomb bays onto your bombers, of course, your agility is going to take a massive hit from that. Fair enough. Small airframes can only take single turret modules. Okay, that kind of makes sense, because in the end of the day, you could somehow put double turrets onto a single aircraft, which doesn't really make sense. It's more of a historical thing than a balance thing. Adjusted the turret stats so they are less powerful for fighters, but better for bombers. Interesting. So they're almost disincentivizing us putting turrets on small airframes. Rebalance thrust and weight of modules and airframes. So we're going to probably see lots of little tweaks to overall weight, probably to take into account these two main changes at the very top. Added new modules, and these new modules are a large autocannon, a large bomb rack, armor-piercing bomb rack, 3 levels of torpedo mounting, added new tech for the plane designer, and combat, better agility and speed has increased the effort on air battles. So they're basically saying is agility was king. Agility is now more king. All right, let's have a look. Let's look at these stats then. So here we go, boys. So we have regular bombs here, and now we have armor-piercing bombs. Warships have steadily increased their deck armor to defeat this. Specialized bombs must be developed to penetrate its armor. So this is more geared towards naval striking, I presume. So 2 to ground attack compared to 6 to ground attack. So how does this work? And there's also heavy bombs now as well. 1939 tech. The only downside I'm going to say to this is there's no new graphics for this, which is a little bit frustrating because the 3 images here, they'll all look exactly the same. It gives it increasing ground attack from 6 ground attack to 8 ground attack. This one only has 2 ground attack. So this looks like a specialized bomb for anti-ship attacks. So it has 6 naval attack compared to a torpedo, which has 9. I'm not really sure how that fits into the game at the moment, but we're going to explore. So interesting, now we have cannons 1, cannons 2, large cannons. Put these all side by side. And then now we also have cannons 2. So let's compare these like for like. So 20 air attack versus 22 air attack versus 24 air attack. With my current meta, I would kind of always ignore this. So I suppose, what does it compare to regular machine guns? That's the big deal. Regular machine guns have 12 air attack, and they have a weight of 4. My understanding is because the players that the meta everyone was using was making machine guns and ignoring cannons. My guess is they've buffed the cannons to try and incentivize that play style. That's my guess here. Because at the minute, I know what PDX do. They watch the current meta and they're like, well, everyone's just making the same meta, so why don't we just adjust the stats a little bit in the back end to just see if how players play differently. Anyway, we have 3 different torpedoes now as well. Let's just look at the numbers. So 9 naval attack versus 15 naval attack. Wow, that's going up. Versus 20 naval attack. And how much is the cruise missiles? This is 8 naval attack, but the targeting is 10. 8 and 10 versus... So they're more accurate, but they don't hit as hard. I feel like a little bit underwhelmed by this because I kind of feel like, how is this going to change our play styles? I don't even know if it will. I do feel like I'll be making my armor a little bit later, and I probably might be more incentivized to make the cannons, but the torpedo stuff I'll probably not even look at. One thing I will say I'll play differently, though, is I will be making my turrets. Sorry, I'll be making my engines bigger to see if that results in more impact on dogfights, and also if it's more effective for the amount of agility that I get from excess thrust. So let's go for a really wonky scenario here. So let's make myself an interwar fighter with the fattest possible engine it can have and a single light machine gun. I can't wait to see the tests for this to see how effective stuff like this is going to be. And now this has 66 agility, which is kind of a wonky number, by the way, because remember, I've researched all, so the agility numbers are higher than they actually would normally be. So 66 versus an actual plane of 54. I don't know. I really don't even know. I don't even really know how these numbers are actually going to affect the overall fights. We need to do a bit of spreadsheet methods to actually see how effective these changes will actually be. To summarize, I think this will incentivize cannons. And I think this will incentivize players to have armorless planes until 1939, and also will incentivize bigger engines. So there is going to be an aircraft that you will build now and be able to upgrade later into the game, because a lot of the time I just make an engine 2 with heavy machine guns and with armor on. It's kind of shit that you can just kind of make a meta plane in 936, well, 939, 938 now, because heavy machine guns you don't get as early, and then you can use that for the rest of the game. So what Paradox are doing is incentivizing is to make planes that constantly evolve as the game progresses. How do you feel? How do you think the changes are going to affect the game? Please comment below. Apart from that, boys, have a really good day. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And this video is the next one. Give it a click. This one might be right up your alley. I'll see you soon. Peace out. God bless. Bye-bye.